Okay, good evening and welcome once again to Hosanna Fellowship. This evening we're going to be looking at Genesis chapter 36. We're going to continue through our studies in Genesis. Let's see. And tonight we're going to be looking at the lineage of Esau. Esau was Jacob's brother. They were twins, born minutes apart, sons of Isaac. And Isaac was the promised son, the son of promise, born to Abraham. And Abraham, the fact that he became a father at all was purely a miracle. He was 100 years old when Isaac was born. And it's amazing that God chooses to work the way he does. To let things look like there is absolutely no way for him to bring things out, and lo and behold, he does. So many times we've seen all throughout history that it looks like this is the end. That there's no way for this to turn around. Looks like the enemy has finally won. But God takes the situation and turns it around. No doubt, Satan thought, I've got this. There's only 8 people left that haven't gone over to my side, that aren't dishonoring Mary, that aren't just worshiping all the little pagan idols that really represent me. And yet, the judgment comes in the flood. And those 8 people that are still looking to follow the Lord are brought through that judgment in the ark. As the enemy thought he won, only to be knocked right back down again. And we'll see other times as we're going through the book of Genesis here. Soon we're going to be talking about Joseph and how his interpreting of dreams sets him in a place of authority where he's the prime minister of all of Egypt, a pagan country, and this good little Jewish boy is raised to prominence in that land. The famine comes, there's devastation throughout. The only place left that has any grain is Egypt, and that's because Joseph followed God's lead and was storing away the grain in the good years so that when the bad years came, there would still be food. So things are going pretty smooth in Egypt for a little while. Then, boom, a new Pharaoh rises up that didn't know Joseph. He's afraid that the Jews are going to get too powerful. So he puts in place a plan to destroy all the children, all the male children of the Jews. And yet, one Jew escapes that, winds up being raised as a prince of Egypt in the house of Pharaoh, raised as if he had been the son of Pharaoh's daughter, a prince of Egypt. And he leads the children of Israel out of that pagan land. No doubt the enemy thought, I'm going to wipe out all the little boys. That way I'll get anyone that the Lord is going to use because it's time for a move on his part. Thinking he had won, only to be knocked on his ear again. And it seems that whenever it's time for the Lord to move in a marvelous way, the enemy looks to destroy the children, trying to stop God's plan by destroying his children before they have a chance to be used of God in the implementation of the plan. You'd think he'd learn by now that it doesn't work. Because at the time of Jesus, again, the enemy is attacking the babies. As he works through Herod to destroy all the boys less than 2 years old. But Jesus isn't caught up in the slaughter. The one that the Lord has chosen to work through, once again, escapes the enemy's plan of destruction of the innocent. And he rises up, he grows up, he becomes a great prophet. He teaches everybody that he has come to bring salvation and the redemption that they're needing, to bring the reconciliation between all sinners on the earth and the Father. And Satan is still attacking, trying to get him, even though he's read the scriptures that say that the gates of hell shall not prevail against God's church. No doubt thinking once again that he had won as Jesus is nailed to the cross. I've got this, he's thinking. Until on the third day, Jesus proved that all he ever said was true when he rose from the grave. Taught his disciples a little bit more for 40 days and then ascended into heaven. Interesting that in our times, again, the enemy is out to destroy the children, trying to destroy those that God is wanting to work through before they have a chance, as he's doing it through abortion today. But neither will his scheme work this time. Because even though he may think he's got the whole thing won, when he sees his emissary sitting on a throne of a one-world government, thinking, yeah, I've got this, the Lord will knock him on his ear again. But he's a stubborn cuss. He don't quit easily, to say the least. Now, we've been following Jacob. We saw that he'd gone back down to Canaan, told Esau that he was going to go over to Seir and stay near him, but didn't really go. He went to Shechem instead, as he's living next to a bunch of pagans. And these Shechemites have an entirely different culture. And we saw that cultural clash where Dinah bore the brunt of that clash, as she was in the wrong place at the wrong time and wound up getting forcibly raped. Well, her brothers didn't think real highly of what had happened, so they hatched a nefarious scheme. The biggest problem with their little scheme was that they used a godly pretense to bring about an ungodly result. As they told the Shechemites that they would have to be circumcised in order for them to come together and form a single community. And when the Shechemites were in the worst pain on the third day after having been circumcised, they wiped them out. So last week we saw that Jacob was a bit frightened. He was afraid of what was going to happen because he didn't have a lot of people. And he was afraid that all the tribes around him, the Hittites and Hivites and all the other ites, were going to rise up and wipe him out. But God gave him instruction on what to do. And he went back to Bethel, house of God, where he had met with God way back when he left to Haran to see Laban, to find a wife out there with his uncle Laban, the Syrian there. So he goes back to this place, the house of God. He builds an altar. And he names it God of the house of God, El Bethel. But he's trying for kind of a reboot. Let's get back on track. Let's just reboot this here machine so that all the nit noise that have been built up in there will hopefully go away and we can start over with a clean background here. But as we saw last week, that the transitional change, the generational transition is coming about. Rachel has died. Rebecca's nurse has died. And we saw that Isaac also died. Isaac, who had been bedridden for 80 years. He was about 100 when Jacob went to stay with Uncle Laban and find a wife. He couldn't see, or he couldn't see very well. That's why they were able to disguise Jacob and make Isaac think that Jacob was actually Esau, so that Jacob was able to obtain the blessing. But Isaac was basically blind. He couldn't taste much anymore, it would seem. He thought the time of his going home was upon him. Thought it was time to give up his existence on earth and go to be with the Father. But 80 years more transpired as he lingered for 80 years, basically bedridden. What does that say to these health and wealth preachers? Would they say that Isaac didn't have enough faith, and that's the only reason he was sick, bedridden for 80 years? I would never challenge Isaac's faith. There's nothing to indicate that he didn't have enough faith to be saved, and I expect to see him when my turn comes to cross through that door. But Isaac passed, and Jacob and Esau got together to bury their father. As that generational transition continues. So tonight we're going to look at the genealogy of Esau, his heritage, his lineage, as we'll talk about the children that were born to him. Then his line is going to sort of fade into the background a little bit, and we're going to have a focus again on Jacob's line. And the transition is starting to come about there also, as the boys are now men and begin to have their own families and begin to pick up their responsibilities to continue the next generation. Father, we thank you for what you're doing in our lives. We thank you for this ministry that you've laid on our hearts. Pray, Lord, that you would work through your word to touch our hearts, our minds, and our spirits. Fill our hearts with your love, Father. Help us to understand who you are, to understand that your love transcends all the things of this earth. Help us, Lord, to be filled with your love, that we might reflect that love about us. Help us, Lord, to receive the understanding that you have for us, to see the examples that you give us through the people that you tell us about in your word, so that we may see just the wonder of who you are, that you work through ordinary people. And sometimes you work through people that leaves us wondering, how could you possibly use such a fellow? And yet, indeed you do. And you bring about your will. And you make all things work together to good for those that love you. Help us, Lord, to love you more, to grow in you, and nourish our spirits through the spiritual food that is your word. To your glory, dear Lord, in Jesus' name. Amen. Verse 1. Chapter 36, verse 1. Now this is the genealogy of Esau, who is Edom. Esau took his wives from the daughters of Canaan. Adah, the daughter of Elon, the Hittite. Aholibama, the daughter of Anah, the daughter of Zibeon, the Hivite. And Basemath, Ishmael's daughter, sister of Nebaioth. Now Adah bore Eliphaz to Esau, and Basemath bore Reuel. And Aholibama bore Jeush, Jalem, and Korah. These were the sons of Esau who were born to him in the land of Canaan. So we see a propagation as sons are born to Esau. And we see that Esau went by two names, Esau and Edom. And this we saw way back when he sold his birthright for a plate of lentil stew. Esau means hairy, and he was it looked like he had a hair coat according to the scriptures when he came from the womb. And Edom means red, and he took the name for various reasons. He was a redhead, evidently. He traded his birthright for them red lentils, and the land that he is going to inhabit up around Mount Seir. Has a red color to it. So he went by the two names, Esau, hairy, and Edom, red. He took his wives from the daughters of the land, a Hittite, a Hivite, and a Ishmaelite. Now all of these tribes, the Hittites and the Hivites at least, were Canaanite tribes. We saw that when they came through the flood after the judgment, there was the three sons of Noah, Shem, Ham, and Japheth. And to Ham were born Cush, Mizraim, also known as Egypt, and Canaan. Or actually, Canaan. So these are Hamitic tribes from Ham's line. And Ishmael was the son of Hagar, Abraham's son through Hagar. Hagar was an Egyptian. Again, a Hamitic tribe. Egypt. Mizraim. So there's a lot of Canaanite lineage here, or Hamitic lineage. Mizraim being a brother of Canaan, and now we're looking at descendants from Mizraim and from Canaan also. So 5 sons are born to him in Canaan before he moved. So the Ishmaelites had a little bit of Jewish blood, Hebrew blood in them from Abraham, but being half Egyptian, when Hagar wanted to, find a wife for Ishmael, she chose an Egyptian wife for him. So his children were 3/4 Egyptian, as they were looking to be more Hamitic than Semitic. So these 5 sons are born to him in Canaan before he moved to Seir. Then Esau took his wives, his sons, his daughters, and all the persons of his household, his cattle, and all his animals, and all his goods which he had gained in the land of Canaan, and went to a country away from the presence of his brother Jacob. For their possessions were too great for them to dwell together. And the land where they were strangers could not support them because of their livestock. So Esau dwelt in Mount Seir. Esau is Edom. That's repeated for us. Esau also went by Edom. So there's a translation of movement. Esau moves lock, stock, and barrel to Seir. Moved everything he had. And for those who don't know where this terminology comes from, lock, stock, and barrel, it comes from way back in the days when muskets were used, and you had the flintlock, the stock, and the barrel. So this is the whole rifle is what's being described here with a flintlock. So that's the derivation of this whole idiom of lock, stock, and barrel. So Jacob and Esau were separated because the land would not support all the livestock. This is not the first time that that God uses prosperity in order to bring about a separation. So prosperity brought the separation as it did when Lot and Abraham separated. And we're not told exactly when this came about, because it seems that Esau was already in Seir when Jacob came back to Canaan. But we know that it's of God to have separated them, and part of the reason was because of the prosperity that they both enjoyed. And again, we're told that Esau and Edom are one in the same person. One and the same. He went by both names. Verse 9. And this is the genealogy of Esau, the father of the Edomites, in Mount Seir. These were the names of Esau's sons: Eliphaz, the son of Adah, the wife of Esau, and Reuel, the son of Basemath, the wife of Esau. And the sons of Eliphaz were Teman, Omar, Zepho, Gatam, and Kenaz. So, Eliphaz, the son through Adah, and all these, let's see, Eliphaz is the son, so Teman, Omar, Zepho, Gatam, and Kenaz are grandsons of Esau. And we're going to see some of these names pop up again from place to place. And most of these guys wound up in what is today's Saudi Arabia. Now Timnah was the concubine of Eliphaz, Esau's son. And she bore Amalek to Eliphaz. These were the sons of Adah, Esau's wife. These were the sons of Reuel, Nahath, Sarah, Shammah, and Mizah. These were the sons of Basemath, Esau's wife. There were sons of Aholibama. These were the sons of Aholibama, Esau's wife, the daughter of Anah, the daughter of Zibeon, and she bore to Esau Jeush, Jalam, and Korah. And it is hard to keep track of all of this without a scorecard. And I'm afraid I was technologically challenged today. I was hoping to be able to put together kind of like an organizational chart to show the family tree branching out. But they've improved the software where I wasn't quite able to master that. I used to do it all the time until they improved the software to where now it's not usable to me again. But I'll fight through it, and eventually I'll get to where I can do this, because there's more than one place where a family tree breakdown would be very helpful, and this is one of them. We have Esau, his 3 wives, and then all the sons that are being born to the wives, and then the next layer down we have some grandsons already being mentioned. Now, the sons of Esau / Edom are listed by each of their mothers. And Eliphaz is a grandson. We're told that he had a concubine named Timnah. And that name's going to pop up again a time or two. But Timnah bears Amalek to Esau. Well, to Eliphaz. So he's in Esau's line: Esau, Eliphaz, Amalek. So this is like the grandson of Esau. And Amalek, for sure, we're going to see again in the scriptures. We're going to see his descendants. For one thing, when the children of Israel come out of Egypt and are wandering in the desert, the Amalekites, the descendants of Amalek, attacked the rear guard, the stragglers, those who were slow because they were weak or injured or whatever. He attacked them and robbed them and killed them. Because of that, Saul, the first king, is commanded to destroy the Amalekites. And Jesus told Moses that there was going to be conflict between Israel and the Amalekites, and every once in a while this conflict was going to rise to a point where God would inflict judgment on the Amalekites. Well, Saul did not fulfill his call in that regard. The kingdom was taken from Saul and given to David. Later on in the book of Esther, we're going to see Haman, wicked Haman, who, it says, is an Agagite, a descendant of Agag. And Agag was the king of the Amalekites that Saul was supposed to have destroyed. The lesson for us is, if you do not put down the flesh, Amalek is always a type of the flesh, symbolizes flesh. But if you do not put to death the flesh, the works of the flesh, that dirty old earthly worldly man is going to rise up again like a zombie. And indeed, the time of Esther, Haman is an Agagite, and he is bent on destroying the Israelites. Eventually the Amalekites were wiped out, but they resurged from time to time because the Israelites did not fully complete the commandment of God to destroy them. Verse 15. These were the chiefs of the sons of Esau. The sons of Eliphaz, the firstborn son of Esau, were Chief Teman, Chief Omar, Chief Zepho, Chief Kenaz, and Chief Korah, Chief Gatam, and Chief Amalek. These were the chiefs of Eliphaz in the land of Edom. They were the sons of Ada. These were the sons of Reuel, Esau's son, Chief Nahath, Chief Zerah, Chief Shammah, and Chief Mizah. These were the chiefs of Reuel in the land of Edom. These were the sons of Basemath, Esau's wife. And these were the sons of Aholibamah, Esau's wife, Chief Jeush, Chief Jalem, Chief Korah. These were the chiefs who descended from Aholibamah, Esau's wife, the daughter of Anah. These were the sons of Esau, who is Edom, and these were their chiefs. So there's a magnification, a promotion, if you would. The word chiefs in the Old King James is dukes. And a duke is the next rank below a king. They're very high ranking. Even into modern times, Mussolini, the Italian dictator, was referred to as Il Duce, the Duke. Not quite calling him a king, but the next highest rank to the king. So it goes on for all of history. And according to TV, there were some dukes in Hazard County. But that's a little bit off track. These guys became high-ranking. And the Edomites are globalists to this day. They may not get all the way to the top. They may not become the king or the emperor themselves. But they are political animals that will rise as far as they can. We've already mentioned the family of the Herods. The Herods were Edomites. The way Mr. the Great, King Herod the Great, became the king was he married a Hasmonean princess after the Maccabean Wars. And because of that marriage, he snuck his way, he weaseled his way in to be appointed the king. And we mentioned Herodias, how she was a political animal. She married one of her uncles, Uncle Philip, because she thought that he was going to be able to put all the tetrarchies back together to be the king over all. And when it looked like Antipas was more likely to win, to consolidate the power, she divorced her uncle to marry her other uncle. Because she figured that if she could not rule the kingdom, and she couldn't because she was a woman, and that's just the way things were in those days. But if she could not rule the kingdom, she wanted to rule the ruler. Political animals, doing anything and everything to promote themselves and get to the highest levels of government that they possibly can. Just power seekers, as they want to rule over everyone, or at least be in that hierarchy where they're right next to the ruler. The Israelis today still refer to the globalists, the one-worlders, as Edomites. And indeed, we're going to see a one-world ruler today. And the Edomites that are left are still going to be jockeying for position. They may not make it to be the one-world leader himself, but you can bet they're going to be right up there next to him. So these were the sons of Seir, the Horite, who inhabited the land. Lotan, Shobal, Zibeon, Anah, Dishon, Ezer, and Dishan. These were the chiefs of the Horites, the sons of Seir, in the land of Edom. And the sons of Lotan were Hori and Hemam. Lotan's sister was Timnah. Remember the concubine for Eliphaz? So we see the origination in the land. The original inhabitants of Seir were Horites. And these are the leaders in the land before Esau came. So this concubine of Eliphaz, Timnah, was descended from the Horites, still a Canaanite tribe. Now these were the sons of Shobal, Alvan, Manahath, Ebal, Shepho, and Onam. These were the sons of Zibeon, both Ajah and Anah. This was the Anah who found the water in the wilderness as he pastured the donkeys of his father, Zibeon. These were the children of Anah, Dishan and Aholibamah, the daughter of Anah. These were the sons of Dishon, Hemdan, Eshban, Ithran, and Cheran. These were the sons of Ezer, Bilhan, Zalon, and Akan. These were the sons of Dishan, Uz, and Aram. So here's the generation. Esau had in-laws among the original inhabitants, among the Horites. And Zibeon was the grandfather of Esau's wife, Aholibamah. So we also see that Timnah was also descended from that line, and she was the mother of Amalek. These are the chiefs of the Horites, verse 29. Chief Lotan, Chief Shobal, Chief Zibeon, Chief Anah, Chief Dishan, Chief Ezer, and Chief Dishan. These are the chiefs of the Horites according to their chiefs in the land of Seir. Again, there's approbation. People are being raised to a high rank. These are high-ranking people among the original inhabitants. Again, they're dukes, one step down from kings. Although those that are under them didn't really know the difference. Verse 31. Now these are the kings who reigned in the land of Edom before any king reigned over the children of Israel. Bela, the son of Beor, reigned in Edom. And the name of the city was Dinhabah. And when Bela died, Jobab, the son of Zerah of Bozrah, reigned in his place. When Jobab died, Husham of the land of the Temanites reigned in his place. Then when Husham died, Hadad, son of Bedad, who attacked Midian in the field of Moab, reigned in his place. And the name of his city was Avith. When Hadad died, Samlah of Masrekah reigned in his place. And when Samlah died, Saul of Rehoboth by the river reigned in his place. When Saul died, Baal-Hanan, the son of Achbor, reigned in his place. And when Baal-Hanan, the son of Achbor, died, Hadar reigned in his place. And the name of his city was Pau. His wife's name was Mehetabel, the daughter of Matred, the daughter of Mezahab. Aren't these names fun? So we see the domination. The kings are now listed. These are the highest ranking in the area before Esau came. And we see the progression among the kings. And it probably was not a nice, orderly transition of power. As we've talked about in our study in Daniel, when power was taken by one empire over another, whoever had been in power before was killed. When the Medo-Persians came into Babylon, they murdered Belshazzar, the king. And they didn't kill his daddy, who was the actual king, because he wasn't there. He was in an oasis down by the Dead Sea, having a fine old time, as he didn't want to rule. He abdicated his duties. Nabonidus was his name. He moved down there just to have fun in the sun for the rest of his life. But when the Medo-Persians came, old Nabonidus didn't have any place to go, so he just stayed down there, enjoying the sun and fun in that oasis down by the Dead Sea. Verse 40. And these are the names of the chiefs of Esau, according to their families and their places and their by their names. Chief Timnah, Chief Alva, Chief Jethet, and Chief Aholibama, Chief Elah, Chief Pinon, Chief Kenaz, Chief Teman, Chief Mibsar, Chief Magdiel, and Chief Iram. These were the chiefs of Edom, according to their dwelling places in the land of their possessions. Esau was the father of the Edomites. So again, chiefs are dukes. There's the aspiration, these descendants of Esau that became dukes. They aspired to that position. They actually were aspiring higher. They had a higher aspire, but this is where they got to. Globalists, trying to suck right up there. If they can't be the king himself, they're going to move as far up in the pecking order as they possibly can. And so we see the lineage of Esau. We see that some of these names, or the descendants of these people, are going to rise again. We talked a bit about Amalek. We will see him rise fairly shortly as we get into the book of Exodus. And all these kings, all this rulership, as we see that progression, the governance in the land of Seir, the rule of man, as the biggest gorilla on the block gets to be the leader because he beats up everybody, and those that can't beat him up but still want to have a part in leadership will cozy up to him. These were the politics. The strong man would be the ruler. But it was a precarious situation, as there's a lot of people in that system of governance that want to have that top job. And they may not be real delicate about the methods that they employ to get that top job. We see it in politics today as well. The manipulation, deception, the backroom deals that go on as people are in that power struggle. And as we are going to soon enough see the one world government, we're going to see man struggling, juggling, jostling for position, and trying to climb in that hierarchy, get that power. But you know, it's a sad thing. If there's one being in this universe that has to constantly be on watch, it's Satan. We're told in the Revelation that when Satan fell, he swept a third of the stars with him. A third of the angels fell with Satan. Now, what do you think? Think maybe these fallen angels were an awful lot like their leader, their master, that they're manipulating, just looking for any opportunity to take him out and take his place? The rule of man, which we've talked about. The rule of man can be a horrible thing, whether it's through a monarchy, whether it's through an oligarchy, or even a democracy. The rule of man can be rather egregious towards all the people beneath that rule. Which is why our founding fathers established a system whereby we could be under the rule of law rather than being under the rule of man. But as I've said before, and I'll repeat many times again, the best rule to be under is to be under the rule of God. And the kingdom is where the king is. So if you've invited the King into your heart, the kingdom is within you already. And if you are under the rule of God, then if there is a rule of law imposed upon you, you'll do well, because anything that the rule of law requires is going to be honored under the rule of God. And even if you're under the rule of man, when you're truly under the rule of God, then you will be doing okay even under that rule. It's a sad state of affairs today as we see that many people in our nation, here in the United States, are looking to socialism as if socialism is the answer, as if socialism is going to save mankind. But socialism is just another form of oligarchy, the biggest difference being how the oligarchs jostle for position and become oligarchs. And socialism we see being played out today in Venezuela, where this nation with tremendous resources, unimaginable resources, because of the political situation, has its people literally starving. So that is yet another egregious implementation of the rule of man, and maybe even worse than democracy. And that, my friends, is why we have a republic and not a democracy. But let us strive to be under the rule of God. And that way we will be just fine regardless of any other system of governance placed between us and Him. Father, we thank you for your word, for the lessons that you give us. Pray that you would work in the hearts, the minds, and the spirits of those who hear, that you would cause us to grow in you, to draw closer to you, and become the people that you would have us be. Glorify yourself through what you bring about in our lives and in this ministry that you've called us to. In Jesus' name, amen.